Good morning. I'm Marcia McMillan. Thanks for joining us this morning on CTV News Channel. We begin this day with breaking news, a major thaw in the escalating trade war between the United States and China, with both sides agreeing to roll back those massive retaliatory tariffs that were imposed at the height of Trump's trade war. Here's what the two sides have agreed to. The U.S. is lowering its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%. China will drop its levies on American products from 125% to 10%. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says neither side wants to decouple their economies.
What had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that.
The changes will take effect May 14th, but the trade war has already inflicted considerable damage, bringing nearly $600 billion in trade between the two countries to a standstill. China's exports to the U.S. fell sharply last month, hitting the country's critical manufacturing industry. America's GDP contracted for the first time since early 2022. Now, stock markets rose on news of the breakthrough in talks between the world's two largest economies. U.S. futures are also up, with the Dow set to open more than 2%. With me now to discuss is CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, good morning to you. So is this rollback a deal? What does this mean?
Well, it certainly appears that both countries are actually moving to a deal. And the fact that we are now seeing a massive rollback on the tariffs makes clear that neither side in this ongoing trade war was actually going to win. And more importantly, I think the biggest losers were both of their respective economies as well as the global markets.
So a 30% tariff is still pretty high. Will U.S. consumers feel that pinch?
They certainly will. But again, I think what we're seeing here is, given the fact that the president was willing to make these massive rollbacks, shows that the United States actually is operating in good faith and wants to make a deal. We have heard from President Donald Trump, who has made clear that he wants a deal with China, and that he has been telegraphing this in not so subtle ways that he wanted and needed this to happen. More importantly, the president was under tremendous pressure to actually get a deal. In fact, we have seen the president lash out at the media for asking questions about when are we going to see the first trade deal. And I think what that speaks to is the president recognizes that these tariffs have been a self-inflicted wound, and they have certainly had tremendous damage, not only on the economy, but also on his political standing. And while this is certainly a win, we cannot forget the fact that none of this had to have happened. And quite frankly, this is something that Donald Trump was pushing. And I think it speaks to the fact that his signature economic policy, which is tariffs, simply is not an effective tool in his toolbox.
So to that point, Eric, do you think that Trump will start to pull away from using tariffs as a tool?
I think he will, and quite frankly, I think as Canada and as the Prime Minister begins to look more closely at renegotiations, specifically around the USMCA, I think we could look at these ongoing talks with China as well as with the UK to give us an indication of where the president is now on tariffs. And I think what we're seeing here is not only a capitulation, but a president who has tried this maneuver and, quite frankly, has seen that it doesn't work.
CTV's political analyst for the U.S., Eric Ham, starting us off. Eric, appreciate you being with us as we begin this Monday morning with that breaking news of that thaw in the U.S.-China trade relationships.